Hello everyone, I'm Toma, and today's video it's all about the histogram, how you read it, how the information is displayed, what decisions to make in your photography based on how the histogram looks. So let's just go, and if you like the information, please consider subscribing for more similar videos. Even though photography is an art form and the final result is considered to be an artistic expression of you, of your ideas and your thoughts, there is a strong technical side to all this. You're using a very advanced technological camera to capture all the images, so you need to know and understand all sorts of technical concepts. Bottom line is this: nobody cares how all this technical stuff works. You just need to know what is that information that is in front of you and how you can use that information to advance your photography. Learning how to read the histogram that is displayed by your camera and understanding how it can help you with your photography, it's not important. It's extremely important. How to read the histogram is the first thing that I teach at my workshops if that person doesn't know how to read the histogram. The reason is because the way the histogram looks will dictate how you adjust your exposure. You know just by looking at the histogram if the image is underexposed or overexposed, and also if the photo managed to capture the entire dynamic range of the scene in front of you. There are two ways to display the histogram, and the most important moment when you should check the histogram is right after you took the photo, because that is the moment when you can adjust things, when you can adjust your exposure to not have blown highlights or almost black point. Here is how a histogram looks. So basically you get a gray graphic that represents the brightness of every pixel in that image. The graphic starts with black to the left and ends with white to the right. If you have lots of pixels glued to the left extremity of the graphic, it means that you have black points in your photo. Also, if you have pixels that are glued to the right side of the image, you have blown highlights, and that means you have areas of complete white in your photo. There are occasions when you can't get all the dynamic range in just one photo. This means that you'll either have black points in your image or blown highlights or white points in your image. The solution to this problem can be to bracket the scene. This means to take multiple exposures with the same focal point and the same focal length, and you combine all those images in an HDR image that now has all the dynamic range of the scene. Now, there are moments on all this it's not possible, and that is when you're photographing, for example, landscapes that are blown away by high winds, or when you have objects or subjects that are moving, for example, moving persons, like in sports, like in events. You can't bracket that scene. So what you do in that moment is to compromise. You either end up with black points or blown highlights, and there is no right and way, although I prefer to have black points in an image rather than white points. But the main decision is to concentrate on your subject and on your action and on the thing that you want to capture, and that will dictate how you expose for the scene. Now let's talk about the other type of histogram, which in my opinion is far more important than the gray representation of the brightness of your image. See, when you read that gray graphic, that is an average, and that average comes from 3 other histograms that are represented by each channel of color, and that means you get a brightness representation for the red, blue and green. And because you are seeing an average, this means that you can have one of those channels overexposed or underexposed and you don't even know it. Usually you're having an overexposed red channel when you're photographing images that have lots of red in them in bright light, and this, for example, means red flowers like roses, or when you're photographing human skin, and what that means portraits. Don't think of something else. When you're photographing portraits in bright sunrise or sunset light, that is the moment when the red channel tends to overexpose, and that is the moment when you should also check the histogram for the red channel, because you may need to underexpose much more than you probably think you should. When you look at the histogram, you'll see vertical sections, and those sections represent stops of light. And in my opinion, that is the true dynamic range capability of your camera. Although the manufacturers of the camera will say that you have 7 or 10, I don't know how many stops of light of dynamic range, the truth is that those are the stops of light that you can capture, and this is my opinion. You can contradict me in comments below, but this is my opinion. So when you are having a graphic, for example, that it's far away to the left, which means the image is a little bit darker, then you need to overexpose the image a little bit. But how many stops? Well, you simply count those vertical sections and you decide how many stops of light needs an image to be overexposed. The tendency is to get all the gray graphic right in the middle, and the perfect shape would be a bell. This is a common piece of information that you will find about the histogram, although I found that even though this is correct in some light situations, there are all sorts of light moments when you don't need to have the graphic right in the middle, when that graphic right in the middle and in the shape of a bell will get an image to look like it's overexposed, like it's too much bright for the result that you're going for. So this means that reading the histogram is very easy. You know when you have a dark image, you know when you have a bright image, you know what to do, how many stops of light to overexpose or underexpose to compensate for that. That is easy. The difficulty comes when your decision has to convey an artistic idea. And this means that not always you should have the histogram right in the center. You should not always go for, let's say, the perfect graphic or the perfect representation of an image, because as I said in the beginning of this video, photography is an art form and you should express yourself, your ideas and your thoughts in your photos. And if you want to have an underexposed image or the feeling of an underexposed image just because the subject is in a really bright light, this means that your histogram will tend to go, for example, to the left. And there's nothing wrong with it. The importance, I think, the most important piece of information that the histogram offers is if you have black points or white points. And what happens in between is an artistic decision of yours, and this will come with time, and the way you're going to think about it will change over time. So I hope this information was useful to you, and if you have something to add or if you have a question, please leave a comment below. Also, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, and if you also want, you can also support my channel and my work by buying one of my editing courses. The link is in the description of this video. And until next time, keep on photographing, because it's the only way that you can get better.